Imagine with me a Western. And imagine a town saloon, a gathering place, yes, for men, but also a gathering place for leaders and influencers in this Western town. Here people discuss the news of the day. Here people exchange ideas of what is taking place. It's a bit of a closed society. If you're not from around here, they know it. And it can be a challenge for an outsider to enter. However, a paying customer is a paying customer, and they are interested in what's going on in the world, so the newcomer may be seen a little kind of sketchy at first, but does not mean it's not necessarily not welcomed. A customer can walk in there in an open way, even if it's wary and cautious. Imagine such a scene like that, and imagine our hero walking into the saloon with something to say to the people. And they might be looking at him a little odd, but they're willing to give him a shot. In some ways, this is like Paul coming to speak in Athens. And I'll make that connection later in the message. This week, we begin a series on the Apostles' Creed and beginning to look at God the Father. Next week will be God the Son, Jesus Christ. Paul speaks to these truths when he speaks to the Athenians gathered there. And it's interesting that this is the passage, again, these are the statements, the references that he makes to them. In the first article of the Apostles' Creed, we have these words: I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. These are three strong statements about the first person of the Trinity. It speaks about God the Father, and that is relational. God is almighty, and that is God's character. And God is maker, creator. That is God's role. One pastor summarized this first article this way: God is immensely powerful and intimately personal. Those are the two great themes: immensely powerful and intimately personal. And as preachers like to say, there's a tension between those two truths. They're both out there, and we're constantly, humanly speaking, going from one to the other, always seeking that sweet spot. If we go too far with immensely powerful, God becomes extremely distant, up there, hateful even, angry. An added idea, an attitude that, oh, God is out to zap me if I get outside the lines. Or, if nothing else, so distant that there's no connection with daily life. A sense that, okay, as long as I keep it between these broad lines, I do my thing, you do yours. On the other hand, we can go to the other extreme and see God as buddy, as pal, as the indulgent grandparent with an open checkbook, or one who would say, here is a debit card, there's no limit, have fun. We can think of God as the butler. Ring for the butler. Bring me my drink from Starbucks exactly the way I like it. Can see God as the ultimate iPhone, Alexa, Uber errand runner. It becomes so trivial and commonplace that there's no sense of the holy. God is immensely powerful and intimately personal. Our first lesson came from Genesis and speaks there of God as maker of heaven and earth. And later God creates humanity, wanting to be in relationship with them. Our second lesson is from 1 Chronicles. It's when David is dedicating the materials that will later be used to build the great temple. And there David gives God the glory. David gives God all the praise. Now David was a man after God's own heart, one who had that intimate relationship with him as well. The 23rd Psalm is attributed to David. That was our second hymn today. In these passages, we see God immensely powerful, intimately personal. As I was doing some research on this topic, and just quite frankly saying, how have other pastors approached God the Father? I was fascinated to see several of them reading through, started with Acts 17, our passage today. This is that moment when Paul is, in a way, walking into that saloon out west. Paul is appealing inside his comfort zone and yet also outside his comfort zone when he speaks in Athens. Now keep in mind, Paul's first culture is Greek. He lived as a Hebrew, and he was proud to be Hebrew, and he knew his heritage. He lived as a Roman citizen, and he was proud to be born a Roman citizen. He lived in Tarsus in the Greek-speaking community among other Greek-speaking Jews. Greek was probably his first language. He learned his Alpha, Beta, Gammas as a child in that language. And he knew the great poets. He knew the Iliad and the Odyssey, and he knew the history of the Greek culture as well as the Hebrew culture. And so to go to Athens, he is going to the home base of his culture. Imagine an American going to Great Britain. And this person could be an Anglophile of British descent and someone who's familiar with England. And imagine being in some upper-class, very British setting. And no matter how hard this American tries, it will be obvious that she or he is an American. Back in Virginia, I served 2 churches in Prince Edward County, and the county seat was literally called Farmville. Charming community, wonderful folks. And I remember talking with one of the older members once of one of the churches. And she talked about when they would go to the big city of Richmond to shop. And Broad Street was the great shopping street of Richmond. Department stores, all the best department stores were there, as well as other specialty shops. And she said, oh, we would get dressed up and we would do our best. But no matter what, it always felt like country comes to town. And that's Paul in this situation. He is there speaking to the great intellectual center of the empire. Rome is the power center, and there are other cities like Alexandria and Antioch and Ephesus that have taken priority over the other cities. But still, Athens is the intellectual center. He is there, and he begins to speak to the people. And as I told the children in that message, this was a place where people went to hear something new or to say something new. We might have the image of the street corner preacher these days, and not sure how that comes across, but for Paul's time and place, this is normal. If Paul were alive today, he would have a blog, a YouTube channel, and you could follow him on Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest. And he speaks to the people who, in some respects, we would say today, are spiritual, not religious. But for that setting, you would say you're very religious. And he says, I see you've got a statue to an unknown God. And he says, this is the God who made everything. He made the world and everything in it. He who is Lord of heaven and earth. He does not live in shrines made by human hands, nor is he served by human hands, as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mortals life and breath and all things. And then Paul states that God made all the inhabitants. He set the boundaries. And then it continues that he made us. He's immensely powerful. And he made us so that we would search for God and perhaps grope for him to find him. Though indeed God is not far from each one of us, for we live and move and have our being, for we too are his offspring. And he quotes a poet that they would know. God is intimately personal. As he speaks of God's creation, he speaks of God as maker, as someone who is almighty, and implies in that he seeks relationship. God is immensely powerful and intimately personal. Paul starts there with God saying that the God of the universe desires intimate personal fellowship with you. From this, we have those two great things. God is intimately personal and immensely powerful, and you can trust him. God is intimately personal. I think of the parent-child relationship at its best. When Jesus spoke in the Lord's Prayer using the word Abba, which in Aramaic means daddy, the most intimate personal way to refer to one's father, in that sense of ultimate trust. Now, it's hard to believe, but 45 years ago, that great, I'll say the family of disaster movies, came out, Jaws. For those of you too young to remember or to know, it's basically about a big shark, white shark, who comes near a beach, kills some people, and so three guys go out to kill Jaws. And in the end, they do. And in the process, in very graphic ways, people die. Now, I saw it on TV some years ago, and it was almost funny, kind of cheesy. The special effects now don't look like much, but at the time, it was cutting edge and it was scary. And I went to see it with a group of friends. It was the first PG movie I ever saw without a parent. And I didn't really know how to set good boundaries in a movie. It really seemed very real to me, and it was scary. And I think of my friend sitting next to me. The movie did not scare him as much as having to sit next to me and listen to me scream at certain points in the movie. I think he has PTSD to this day. I got home, and I knew Jaws was out to get me. And as I wanted to go to sleep that night, I was scared. And so I said, Daddy, would you sleep in the room tonight? Now, my daddy could sleep anywhere. And so he just laid up against the nightstand next to my bed, and he went to sleep like that. And I could go to sleep. Because I knew if Jaws came out of the closet to try to eat me, my daddy would kill him. And Daddy never made fun of me for asking that.